Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You check your phone, open social media, turn on the news, and something feels wrong.
Oh, no new music releases?
No movie promotions, no interviews, no influencers, no actors, no athletes, no public figures. Every celebrity on Earth, gone. Not retired, not hidden, not offline, vanished. Their accounts frozen, their projects unfinished, their voices suddenly silent. For the first time in modern history, the global spotlight is empty. What would actually happen if all celebrities disappeared from the world overnight? In this scenario, every globally recognized celebrity disappears instantly. Actors, musicians, athletes, influencers, public entertainers, media icons, not just the biggest names, but anyone whose identity is built around public recognition and mass cultural influence. They leave behind their work, their companies, their contracts, their digital presence. But they themselves are gone, no explanation, no warning, no trace. The world remains technologically intact. Governments still function, economies still operate. But culture loses its most visible figures in a single moment. To understand the impact, we must first understand what celebrities truly are. They are not just entertainers. They are economic engines, cultural symbols, marketing powerhouses, psychological anchors in a media-driven world. Celebrities shape trends, influence consumer behavior, drive billion-dollar industries. Entire ecosystems depend on their existence. Film industries, music labels, sports leagues, fashion brands, advertising markets, streaming platforms, their value is not only artistic, it is structural. A single major film release can generate hundreds of millions in revenue. A global music tour can employ thousands of workers. A celebrity endorsement can move entire markets overnight. Now imagine that entire system losing its central figures instantly. History has seen the loss of major public figures before. The sudden deaths of iconic artists, actors, and musicians have caused global emotional reactions, economic shifts, and cultural pauses. When globally recognized figures pass away, media consumption spikes, memorials emerge. Industries temporarily stall. But these events are isolated, never simultaneous, never universal. Even during major historical disruptions, wars, pandemics, political upheavals, celebrities remain present as symbols of continuity. They provided distraction, hope, identity. A complete disappearance would have no historical precedent. It would be a cultural vacuum unlike anything humanity has experienced. Phase 1. Immediate shock. First 24 hours, the first reaction would be confusion. Social media platforms would detect inactivity from millions of verified accounts. Scheduled content would stop. Live broadcasts would abruptly cancel. News organizations would initially suspect a cyber-attack or coordinated hoax. But within hours, patterns would emerge. Every celebrity, every country, every industry, gone. Global panic would not begin instantly. Instead, disbelief would dominate, because the idea itself would seem impossible. Phase 2. Media collapse and cultural silence. First week, entertainment industries would enter a state of emergency. Films awaiting release would lose their promotional anchors. Concert tours would be canceled indefinitely. Sports leagues would lose star players mid-season. Streaming platforms would see a surge in viewership of old content. People would revisit past performances, past interviews, past appearances, not as entertainment, but as historical records of people who suddenly vanished. Late-night shows, award ceremonies, and live events would halt completely. The global entertainment cycle would freeze. Phase 3. Economic shockwaves. First month, the economic consequences would begin rapidly. Celebrity-driven industries represent trillions of dollars in global value. Advertising contracts would collapse overnight. Brand partnerships would dissolve. Film productions would shut down mid-project. Studios would face massive financial losses. Sports organizations would renegotiate entire seasons. Music labels would lose their primary revenue generators. Stock markets connected to media and entertainment sectors would likely experience sharp volatility, not because the world stopped functioning, but because one of its largest cultural economies suddenly lost its core assets: human attention magnets. Phase 4. social and psychological effects first year here, the deeper consequences would emerge. Celebrities serve as modern archetypes, role models, aspirational figures, shared cultural references. Without them, society would lose a major source of collective identity. No viral performances, no global award moments, no shared cultural events centered around personalities. Attention would begin to shift from personalities to ideas, from fame to community figures, scientists, educators, local leaders. This concept of fame itself would begin to evolve. Phase 5. The rise of new public figures. Human psychology resists vacuums. If celebrities vanished, new forms of influence would eventually emerge. Not necessarily traditional entertainers, but storytellers, experts, digital creators without legacy fame structures. However, the definition of celebrity might fundamentally change. Instead of global icons, influence could become decentralized, more fragmented, more niche, more community-driven. Mass culture might shift toward collective experiences rather than personality-driven narratives. Phase 6. Long-term cultural transformation. Decades later, over time, society would adapt. New generations would grow up without traditional celebrity culture. Entertainment would still exist, art would still exist, sports would still exist. But the emotional attachment to individuals as global icons would weaken. Stories might become more important than storytellers, creations more valued than creators. Brands would rely less on endorsements and more on product value. Marketing would shift from personality-driven persuasion to data-driven targeting. The economy would stabilize. Culture would feel fundamentally different, quieter, less centralized, less spectacle-driven. One surprising outcome could be increased authenticity in media. Without celebrity influence shaping trends, public attention might diversify. Independent creators could gain visibility. Local artists could rise organically. Undiscovered talent pools could expand. At the same time, misinformation risks could grow. Celebrities often act as amplifiers for global messages, public health campaigns, social awareness movements, humanitarian causes. Without recognizable voices, large-scale messaging could become less effective. Society would lose powerful communication channels. From a sociological standpoint, celebrity culture fulfills psychological functions. It provides parasocial relationships, one-sided emotional bonds between audiences and public figures. These relationships offer comfort, identity, and emotional engagement. Removing celebrities would not remove the human need for connection. It would redirect it toward communities, toward virtual identities, possibly even toward artificial digital personas created to fill the void. In fact, the disappearance of real celebrities could accelerate the rise of AI-generated public figures, controlled, predictable, always present, a new era of synthetic fame. At first glance, the disappearance of celebrities might seem like a cultural inconvenience, less entertainment, less glamour, less spectacle. But in reality, it would be a structural shift in how society communicates, consumes, and connects. It would reshape global economics, redefine influence, transform media ecosystems. And most importantly, it would force humanity to confront a deeper question. Do we value the art or the artist? Because if all celebrities vanished, music would still exist, stories would still be told, sports would still be played. But the global spotlight, the shared human fascination with larger-than-life figures would disappear, perhaps permanently. And in that silence, a new cultural identity would slowly emerge. Less centered on fame, more centered on function. Less about who is seen, and more about what is created. But one mystery would remain. If the world adapted to life without celebrities, would humanity eventually recreate them? Or would we discover that the era of fame itself was only a temporary phase in human history? And if that is true, what other pillars of modern society might vanish next without us even realizing how much we depended on them?